Hey guys, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my June wrap-up. June was a pretty good reading month for me. I was traveling a bit, so I maybe didn't get to as many books as I wanted to, but overall I still read a ton and I had a lot of fun, read a lot of good books, and I'm so excited to talk about them. The first book I read this month was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This book has been getting so much hype, so I was really curious to see what it's all about and what I would think of it. When Jude was a child, she watched her parents get brutally murdered by a fairy general and then whisked away to the land of Fae. Jude and her sisters then grow up in this world, and as they get older, Jude longs to belong, even though she's only a mortal in the land of beautiful, immortal creatures. Okay, I really wasn't sure how I was going to feel going into this book because I've seen it get a lot of mixed reviews with some people saying it was slow and they didn't like the characters or whatever, but I ended up loving it. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. First of all, I thought the setting was just very dark and lush, and I loved how the fairy were very cruel. In other like fae books that I've read, the fairies haven't necessarily been like cruel or scheming, but in this one stayed pretty true to that fairy folklore, and I really like that aspect. I didn't think that Jude was very likable at all, but she still ended up being one of my favorite characters of the year just because of how conniving she was and how she thirst for power, and she tried to get it any way that she could. Very morally gray, and I really kind of like loved reading about her struggle in this land of immortals. The politics of this land were very compelling, and the political maneuverings have a lot to do with the plot and how Jude kind of plans on getting power, and she kind of, everyone underestimates her because she's a human, but she uses her wits and her smarts to kind of, you know, outsmart everyone, so I really enjoyed that aspect. I love the slow burn between her and Carden. It's very slow burn, and I just loved all the interactions between each other because they were just so both very morally gray and like kind of manipulative to one another, and they're trying to outmaneuver one another. So very gripping, very dark, and I just really enjoyed this book. The next book that I read was City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. I actually got this ARC at BookCon, and I'm so happy. This is my first ever ARC. I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to get it because the line was insane, but thankfully it was moving very quickly and we just hopped on and I got a copy of this, and I'm so excited. Cassidy Blake is able to see ghosts, and her best friend just so happens to be a ghost when her family whisks her away to Edinburgh for the summer as they host a BuzzFeed Unsolved-esque type TV show. She gets drawn into the dangerous world of the ghosts in this ancient quote-unquote city of ghosts. So this is actually the first middle grade novel that I've read as an adult. I don't think I've read middle grade really since I was in middle grade. So it was really interesting to see how I like this novel from the perspective of being someone older. I love Victoria Schwab. She's one of my favorite authors, so I will basically read anything that she writes. I just found it like really fun, adorable, and you know, a little eerie and spooky, and I think that she writes in this age group very well. I thought the story was very like well paced for someone that is in middle grade, but still being really intriguing and fun that people of all ages can enjoy it. I did end up giving this a 4.75 out of 5. The only thing missing from this is I thought that I wanted a little bit more backstory and explanation on some of the ghostly characters, but there are going to be future novels in the series, I believe, so hopefully that will kind of expand upon some of the backstories of these characters, because that is the only thing that I felt was missing. But overall, a really solid middle grade read. Very fun, very adorable. I loved it so much. Next, I read Three Dark Crowns by Kendar Blake. I actually picked up this book. I won it. They had like a little stand in the front of BookCon, and I won it, and on the wheel that was giving away prizes. In the land of Fennyburn, 3 triplet queens are born every generation, each with a different power. We have a naturalist, an elemental, and a poisoner, and they must kill each other when they turn 16 and the remaining queen sits on the throne. Overall, I ended up giving this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I found it like very like addictive and almost like a very brutal land. I mean, like 16-year-old sisters have to kill each other for the throne. Like, that's wild. It did start off like a little slow, and there were a lot of characters kind of thrown in at once just because we are following 3 different storylines. But kind of like as the story picks up pace, you kind of like get familiar with all the characters and stuff, and that, you know, is less of an issue. I did really love the matriarchal structure of the society, as they are queens and the king is only a king consort, aka he has no real power, which is a really cool aspect. I also loved how the magic system and the political system were kind of tied together, where the whatever queen has power, that then like political and magical faction has power, and like how the different factions with their different powers try to outwit one another to keep their queen on the throne or get their queen on the throne. Another really unique thing about this novel is that it's written in third person present, which is not something I've normally seen in YA fantasy novels, and I thought that it just played into kind of like creating the eerie atmosphere of this book. So again, that was a really unique aspect, and I ended up really liking the way that it worked. The three sisters, Arsinoe, Mirabella, and Catherine, each had like very well drawn and distinct personalities, and I loved reading about the inner turmoil that they all go through as they have to take upon this challenge of murdering their sisters. I mean, that's very brutal and very, you know, horrifying. And I thought there was a very interesting discussion of the interplay between the lust for power and the family bonds. So again, overall, 4.75 out of 5, a very fun and intriguing first novel, and I'm excited to pick up the sequel and see where it goes from there, because I can only assume it gets even darker. So the next two books I read this month were Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. Since these are part of the same duology, I figured I would just lump them together and talk about them together. So Six of Crows follows 6 outcasts that have to basically pull off an impossible heist. This is set in Leigh Bardugo's Grishaverse, but in the city of Ketterdam. We follow Kaz Brecker. He's the lieutenant of the Dregs, which is a gang in Ketterdam, and we just follow him and his little team that he assembles as they go to pull off this impossible heist, and there are plot twists galore. Crooked Kingdom follows the events of Six of Crows, and we continue following our team as they have to deal with the fallout of what happens at the end of Six of Crows. Okay, what can I say about this book? Each character is so well drawn out with realistic strengths and also personality flaws. I just like loved the way that they interacted with each other. The dialogue is just like so fun because they all have very distinct personalities and different kind of like moral codes that they live by. Their backstories are mainly told through flashbacks, which doesn't necessarily always work, but the transitions between present day and flashback were just so seamless that it doesn't pull you out of the story at all, and you just get to know like a better understanding of all the characters. And I think that that is very hard to pull off when you basically have many different perspectives going on, but Leigh Bardugo just does it so well. Also, the representation is just really well done. We have characters of different ethnicities, sexualities, and disabled characters, and it's just weaved into the story so flawlessly. And this is just, you know, kind of how all novels should be with their representation, where it's not a main plot point, it's just something that is a part of it. Anyways, there are plot twists galore. It's just so clever, so well written. I just love everything about it. Both of these books got a 5 out of 5 stars for me. I just love them so much. It's so good. Read them. I will say that I did read the Shadow and Bone trilogy before reading Six of Crows. I think Six of Crows is definitely better, but you do get a lot of world building with Shadow and Bone that will maybe help you understand the Six of Crows world. You don't necessarily need it, but it could be just something to give you more backstory, but you probably definitely need to read the Shadow and Bone trilogy for the upcoming King of Scars coming out in January, which has characters from both the Shadow and Bone trilogy and the Six of Crows duology. The next book, I loved it so much, and that is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This book is just so cute and amazing, and I will gush about it forever and ever and ever because I love it with all of my heart. So this book follows Simon Snow, who is basically the worst chosen one ever. His roommate Baz is evil and a vampire and doesn't even bother showing up to their last year at the magical Watford Academy. However, they will soon find out that greater magical forces threaten their world as they know it. So this, I haven't read Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, but I probably will soon after reading this. But basically Simon Snow is who Kath writes fan fiction about in Fangirl, correct me if I'm wrong, and so this is basically a companion spin-off novel to that, and just, oh my god, these characters, I could gush forever and ever. Just both Baz and Simon are really funny. Their dialogue just like had me laughing sometimes. Like, they're just so funny, and just the tension between them. I just wanted to keep reading because I needed to know what happened between them, and they're just so cute. And the sequel, Wayward Son, is coming out in 2020, and it needs to be 2020 like tomorrow so I can read it. I can't say anything but good things about this book. I loved it with all of my heart. It was just such like a fun, lighthearted fantasy read, and I absolutely adored it. Okay, so if you've been following me at all on my reading vlogs or anything like that, you'll know that I'm attempting to buddy read the entire Mortal Instruments, Infernal Devices, Dark Artifices with my best friend Melissa. I will leave her Instagram link down below. You should definitely go check her out because she takes some really cool photos of books. So anyways, in high school, Melissa had all of the Mortal Instruments books, and she would read them, and then she would loan them to me, and I would read them, and we would talk about them. And we've both basically been on this kick now that we've finished school that we're just reading a lot, so we figured why not buddy read the entire Mortal Instruments series together. Do I even need to give a summary of what this is about? Because I feel like everyone knows at this point. But basically, if you don't know, Clary Frey gets swept up into the world of the Shadow Hunters, which are half angels, half humans who hunt the demons of the underworld. When her mother is kidnapped and she's attacked by a demon, she has to enlist the help of the Shadow Hunters to save her mother and the fate of the world. So it's very different reading these books at 23 versus being 16. When I was 16, I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. Upon my reread, I actually ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars, and there are a few reasons for that. This world is just so much fun. Like, I was reading this and I'm like, all right, I need to go out and buy like everything Shadow Hunters, like every single thing that exists in this world, because I'm just really obsessed. Like, I think that's one of Cassandra Clare's talents, is just this Shadow Hunter world is just like, it's urban fantasy, so it's got real life elements and then fantasy elements, and mixes them all together and just creates this really cool thing. And I think that's why this series has had just like the wild success that it's had. Some of the things that kind of like took away from the story that I didn't necessarily notice as a teenager, but I definitely noticed as an adult, was the vocabulary. There were just a lot of like random big words thrown in. Words that like I probably didn't even know when I was studying for the SAT, and I just would like read a word and I'd be like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I have 2 college degrees. Like, I literally, like, what 16 or 17-year-old, or like, you know, even someone that's younger would know this word. And I think like, although that could like encourage a younger person to go and expand the vocabulary, it's just, it's not the way that 16 or 17-year-olds would talk at all. So I just felt like that was really weird. And again, it just pulled me out of the story. I didn't think it was good for the target audience. And I mean, hopefully that's something that changes over time with her future novels. I will keep my eye out for that as I keep reading. And again, but that could just be because this was a debut novel for her and she hadn't necessarily hit the exact way to speak to her target audience. There were also a lot of like obscure art references, and I think that was just a way for Cassandra Clare to kind of characterize Clary as an artist and someone that knows about art, but like as someone that knows nothing about art, she'd be like describing something like through the lens of some sort of painting, and it'd be like, I have no idea what she's talking about. And again, that kind of pulled me out of the story a little bit too. But anyways, again, just a really fun novel, lots of action, lots of plot twists, and it just reminded me why I loved this world so much when I read it when I was 16. So again, I'm really excited to keep going with the rest of this series. The final 2 books that I read in June are In Ember in the Ashes and Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir. I'll just lump these together since they are part of the same series. In Ember in the Ashes is a dual perspective Roman-inspired fantasy novel. The Marshals have conquered the Scholar Empire. When Laya's brother is arrested for treason by the Marshals, Laya, a scholar girl, must join with the resistance and become a spy within Blackcliff Academy, which trains the Empire's most ruthless soldiers, the Masks. Elias is a mask who loathes the Empire and wishes to escape. When their fates intertwine, their choices may change the Empire forever. Okay, I gave An Ember in the Ashes and A Torch Against the Night both 5 out of 5 stars. I just loved how these stories slowly weaved together. Really, both Laya and Elias have their own narratives, and then as the story comes to a conclusion, they get wound closer and closer together. The tension between the characters is just so good. There's just so many different moving parts and things going on, and this is actually a reread for me. I first read these first 2 books in 2016, and there's just so much foreshadowing that I didn't pick up on the first time that I read, and now reading it over, I'm like, Saba has been planting hints all along. Elias is probably one of my new favorite characters. I just think that Saba writes about his internal struggles really well, as he struggles with the fact that he is a mask, which is basically a killing machine, but that's not what he wants to be in life. I also really love the parallels that were drawn between Elias and Laya, basically how Saba shows that they're both slaves just to a different force. I thought that this story was equally plot driven and character driven, so much so that the story just flows and it's beautiful. And there's also a bit of a love triangle with basically both of the characters have their own love triangle, and I thought in Laya's case it is really well done because it's not really a love triangle, it's like an attraction triangle, which I feel like is the only way that it really works. Because like, just if you're like full out in love with like one person and then another person in fantasy novels, I find that it kind of falls a little bit flat, but this is more of an attraction triangle, which I think is the only way that this plot device really ever find success. In Torch Against the Night, we also get Helene's perspective. Helene is Elias's best friend, and I won't say too much because I don't want to go into spoilers, but just kind of also reading about her internal struggles and her very morally gray character is something that I wasn't expecting to like her as much as I did. I think that Saba really shines when she is writing about the emotional turmoil that these characters go through. I think that's where her writing is the strongest, and I think that's just really what connects me to the story and the character the most, just because I like care about what's going to happen to them, and just reading about what they're going through sometimes is just like gut-wrenching. Alright, so that's it for all of the books that I read in June. I had such a great reading month and I'm very excited to continue reading in July. Let me know in the comments below what was your favorite book that you read in the month of June, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, or whatever it is people on YouTube say these days. Alright, so that's it. Have some fun, read some books, and I'll see you guys in the next one.